We have a question in the back.
Question for either Lorenzo or Joseph.
If either of you could speak a little to the sort of phenomenon that we're seeing when we look at the Syrian opposition, scrolling very, superficially down the ranks of the leaders of the Majlis al-Odia, or whatever it's called this week, one finds that that there are Muslim Brotherhood affiliations sort of throughout. And I wonder if you could just talk about sort of the Syrian Muslim Brotherhood as a phenomenon distinct from the Egyptian one, or whatever other ones there are, and then also the sort of Syrian opposition and its connection to the Brotherhood. Thanks.
The question is about the Syrian opposition, uprising that's currently taking place in Syria, and the position of the Muslim Brotherhood within it, as well as the Syrian Muslim Brotherhood's history and its relation with other branches of the Muslim Brotherhood in other countries.
Okay. So it's possible to draw a grand distinction between Brotherhood groups and Brotherhood affiliates that were permitted to function in a semi-legal status in the dictatorships they were aspiring to unseat, particularly Egypt. By contrast to places, and we'll just say Egypt for now. By contrast to places in which there was zero tolerance and these groups were systematically mowed down. And the most prominent example is, of course, Syria. And many of you know about the Hama massacre in which perhaps tens of thousands of people were mowed down over the space of a weekend. And so the Syrian Muslim Brotherhood is more in the mold of the Tunisian Ennahda movement in the sense that it was largely non-functional in Syria, and its leadership were in the European diaspora for the most part during this long period of Assad rule, certainly during the period of Bashar's rule. Now, what we learned in Tunisia is that a group like Ennahda, though its leadership was abroad, though many of its key decision makers, its security team were in Europe, they were able very quickly to establish themselves in Tunisia, even though they were not the torchbearers of the revolution at first. Some people feel that this is because of a general trend toward Islamism throughout the region, bolstered by satellite television, by the internet. This content reaches the region as a whole, regardless of who is where. Some people feel that it was a reaction, and these are the optimists who feel it was simply largely a reaction to the Bin Ali establishment. They wanted to choose the other side of the coin. That's an optimistic view because it suggests that they might just as quickly change their minds next time around if given the opportunity. So there is reason to believe that the Syrian Muslim Brotherhood will be able to gain control through an electoral process in Syria fairly swiftly after the unseating of Bashar. The one thing that I will say for those who take a contrarian view is that what makes the Syrian revolution different from Egypt's and Tunisia's and Libya's is that it has taken so long. And it isn't over yet. And what happens in the course of a protracted, what is now a civil war, is that local leadership has an opportunity to emerge through the cauldron of military activity and gain a kind of a credibility for having been there all the time that people coming in from the outside don't have. So the fact that this thing didn't take 17 days or 21 days, but has been going on now, and probably will go on a bit longer, may speak in favor of those young people who have become military leaders on the ground. It's also helpful for jihadists, of course.
Can I just one thing here? I think it's the way the Brotherhood, the Syrian Brotherhood, has come to dominate the political opposition to the Syrian regime. I think it's a wonderful example of how the political organization of the Brotherhood manages to overcome forces that are by numbers stronger than the Brotherhood itself. If you look on the ground, for a variety of reasons, some were mentioned by Joseph, the fact that it was pretty much wiped out, the Brotherhood doesn't have a very big presence. I mean, it's a very complicated task to exactly figure out what militia belongs to what organization on the ground in Syria, but most observers would probably agree that the Brotherhood doesn't have a huge presence on the ground. Nonetheless, disproportionate overrepresentation when it comes to the political side. Why? The usual problem, the usual situation, lack of organization of all the other forces, and the Brotherhood political ability to mobilize the right support. I think it's fair to say that if it wasn't for the support of the governments of Qatar and Turkey, which have directly been promoting the Brotherhood in Syria, and the acquiescence of European and American government to that sort of decision, it wouldn't be possible for the Brotherhood to obtain such a position. And again, having observed sort of this debate, at least more from the Brussels side of things, the idea has been, well, we don't really know who to talk to. As you said, you know, the organization changes name every day. We have these big meetings, and well, of all the groups that come to us asking for help and support, which one is the best organized? Which one is the one that comes with sort of a structure that us as a bureaucracy can better relate to? It's the Brotherhood. And the support of Qatar and Turkey in that has been absolutely instrumental.